Hey everyone, this is Bing from Simplicity and Sound. I'm here with my partner Joey. We're going to try to run through a very basic setup run through of the Moscone processor. In this case, a Moscone 6-8 V8 DSP. So first thing, of course, you got to make sure everything's installed correctly, and we're going to do this through the Bluetooth wireless tuning. Just got to make sure the Bluetooth dongle is plugged in correctly, and it'll be flashing red. Then you're ready to go. So first thing you do is you go on your computer. Here we have a laptop with a Bluetooth dongle. So what you basically do here, come down here to the Bluetooth menu, and then you want to have your computer discover this device, in which case here we click Discovery, and it'll go through that, and one of the things should come up as Moscone Gladen, and that is the DSP Bluetooth dongle. So once that's done discovering, what you want to do is then double click on the Moscone Gladen. In this case, each computer may be a little bit different, but on ours, you click on the serial port here, and it's going to ask you for a pin. And the pin you want to enter is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you press OK, and on the bottom it will say now Moscone Gladen is connected. Now you basically open the program, and depending on the processor you have, you could have a 68, a 46, in which case it's a V8. It's already selected. You're going to press OK, and now it's going to come up to this screen. Now, depending on the computer you have and the software is running, our experience is that it could take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes for it to pick up. At this point, you just basically wait until the next screen comes on. This screen has popped up, and this is pretty much what it will look like. Usually it will say deactivate password protection. Now if you get one that requires a PIN, I would recommend you call your dealer and get what this PIN is so you can enter into it. Without it, you don't have the full tuning capability of the processor. And here we also have 3 different options here. What you want to usually typically do is do copy data to console. What that does is load whatever files that's pre-existing on the DSP onto this console for you to work with. If you had a pre-existing preset on there and you do copy data DSP and you don't have a preset on here, it's going to erase all that, so you have to start all over. So here's what we're going to do is click this, and it's going to take about a minute to go through all 4 presets, and you'll see the bar scroll across, and it will load all 4 presets. And basically that's what's going to go through. I'm usually a little bored when this happens, but I try to do something to entertain myself, like having Joey yell at me for misplacing his tools, or doing something wrong, or wasting things. But I put on a brave face.
Bing, stop stalling and give him relevant content.
Yes, but I cry by myself at night. That's how I get away with it all. So anyhow, it's now doing the preset for it, and very quickly it's going to go through it all. Last bar, and there. Now we're in. So we're going to just do one preset for you. So we'll click on preset 1. Now first thing you do is the mixer. Now this is pretty intuitive. You have 6 channels of input and 8 channels of output, and you can direct any percentage of each input channel to any output channel you want. In this card that we're tuning, we have just a single pair of RCAs going into the input channel 1 and 2 of the DSP, and then we're utilizing 6 output channels to go to 3 different amplifiers, but we have 1 plus 2 is tweeter, 3 plus 4 is mid-range. 5 and 6 we're not using, so there's nothing going to it. And 7 plus 8 we're using as sub, so it's 100%, you can see that. Using this function, you can also do summing. For example, if you're summing a high and a low signal, you can sort of basically balancing it by entering different percentage, and it'll create a full range signal. So right now, as you can see, we did these 6 channels, 100% inputting from 1 and 2. So that's pretty much what you have to do here. There's also other aux options, input options, but I think that's probably a better thing left to asking your dealer about. So once you get to do that, now this computer, the resolution is a little bit weird, so it sort of cuts off a little bit of the screen. but most likely you'll be able to see the entire right-hand screen with a back escape button. So you press that and it goes back to this menu. Now usually the first thing I like to set before anything is the crossovers, because without that you might damage your tweeter. So you click over to the crossover filter section, and this is pretty simple to use. So we're on 1 and 2 by default. You can choose high pass, low pass, high shelf, low shelf. Most typically you're going to use high pass and low pass. So once you choose high pass, for example, then you have a different types of filter you can choose from. You can see anything from 6 to 12 dB, and then you enter in the frequency that you want to high pass at. For example, on the tweeter channel 1 and 2, I have a high pass via a Linkwitz-Riley filter of 12 dB octave and at 2700 Hertz. It's just a starting point. If you want to stack filters, you can simply drag another thing down, use high pass again, and you can stack. Let's stack another Linkwitz-Riley 12 dB at 2700 Hertz. But the only thing you got to remember is to create a 24 dB Linkwitz-Riley, you actually need to stack 2 Butterworth 12 dB octave slope. So, but this is just to demonstrate how you stack 2 filters to create a steeper slope. So since we don't want to do that on this, let me go back to flatten it out, and then let's go to 3 and 4. Here we have a high pass 12 dB at 80 Hertz and a low pass at 2500 Hertz. And again, band pass filter now. Again, same concept applies. You can stack them, so I guess up to a total of maximum 48 dB between the high pass and low pass. So that's pretty relatively intuitive. You can also, if you choose to, do left and right to have different kind of filters. So you just click this, left equals right and left doesn't equal right, and then you can do left and right separately. So once you set that for your crossovers, you can click back over here. Next thing I like to do is, I like to do is play with a time delay. Now there's 2 different ways manufacturers generally do time delay. There's some where you sit in the car, you measure different speakers, the distance they are from your ear, and then you just type those distances onto the screen, and that basically calculates the delay and delays it for you. How Moscone does it, and some other manufacturer does it, is I sit there and measure the distance from my ear to a certain speaker and then to another speaker, and I basically reference the one that's the furthest away from you as not delayed at all. And then I delay everything to that. There's many different ways to do this. I sometimes even do it differently, but this is a very basic way of doing it. Is for example, if usually the right mid bass is the lowest, that's the furthest speaker away from you, so you start that at 0. Let's say you measure the right tweeter and it's 6 inches closer to your ear than the mid bass. You can simply click up here until you get to close to 6 inches. Now if you say the left tweeter is 25 inches closer to your ear, you can simply go here till you're 25. And again, and you do that with all the speakers in the car. I typically do not time delay the sub, but if you choose to, you can do that as well. Again, this is just a very basic way of doing time delay. There's many methods that work just as well, if not better. And I usually like to go in the car, always confirm with your ear to make sure that a center image is established, not just go by your measurements, because usually it's never completely precise. So that's basically that. While doing time delay in the car after you finish on the screen, one nice feature to do is to be able to mute different speakers, so you can just listen to the tweeters and just to the mid bass. And we'll go right to the level control. And this being a 6 to 8 V8, one thing you'll notice is that they also default at top as 6 dB. The reference is no longer 0 dB. The highest you can go is plus 6 dB. So you can do, for example, this is very intuitive. Channel 1 is left tweeter. You can go down on it. The response is a little bit slow, but you can go up, or you can mute it. There it goes. You can also group different channels. Say you want to lower both tweeters at the same time. You just group 1 and 2 together and press down, and you'll see both of them are dropping at the same rate. And you can do that whichever way you want in any of the channels. So this is pretty much how you do the output gain control of the 6-to-8 V8. So going back to this, the phase inversion is pretty basic. You can choose between 0 100 degrees, so in or out of phase on any of the speakers. And so we go to channel 1. I want to reverse the phase of channel 1. You just press up. It goes from 0 to 180. You have just now reversed the phase on the front left tweeter. Same concept for everything. Again, you can group, say you want to reverse the phase of both mid basses at the same time. So you select channels 3 and 4, press up. Now both have been reversed, and both can come back. And then the last thing we're going to go over is the EQ, which is actually really kind of cool part of this DSP. So on the front 4 channels, you get 31 bands of, actually on the front channels, you get 31 bands of fully parametric EQ. What that means is, for example, these are set at 1/3 octave steps by default. But what you can do is go down here to parametric EQ, and here you can enter any frequency you want. So literally each band is variable by 1 hertz step. So right now, for example, this band is at 800. I can make that, if I wanted to, at 7,942 hertz, and press enter, and I can change that frequency exactly. Q factor, narrow or wide of the EQ band, you can go for, I believe, from 0.5 all the way up to 14 or 16. In fact, let me enter some bogus number. It'll tell me what it is. So between, oh wow, 0.5 and 40 is where you're able to alter the Q by. So let me go back to 4 here, just because we're just playing around with this. So now we can do the top section is the left channel, and the bottom section is the right channel. What I like to do is EQ one side at a time, one speaker at a time. So what you can do, if you want just to EQ the left tweeter, for example, at this band you can either just click up, you'll move this bar up by 0.5 dB every time, or if you go down here in the mid section, every time you click, it's 1 dB step up. Same thing for the opposite, the right hand side. You can do this, or you can go back up by 0.5 dB every time. Now once you got both sides sort of EQ'd individually, if you want to come back then and move the slider down, up and down together, you simply go in the middle, press up, positive rather, or minus, it'll go up and down by 0.5 dB every time. So, and this is, the front 4 channel has more bands, and it's basically the channel 5 and 6 and 7 they have less bands, and the whole concept is you shouldn't need as much EQ bands on the subwoofer channel and the mid-bass channel if you're doing a 3-way setup. So that's pretty much the basics of it. One thing you got to remember that's very important is when you want to, anything you do is automatically saved to the DSP in real time. But if you want to save it to a file, you simply come here, save settings P1, and you save, you can call it, I can call this test P1, and then press save, and it'll have saved it. Now remember, every single one of these files only corresponds to one preset. There is no file that stores all 4 presets. So if you want to save for each preset, you got to save to 4 different files. You can call them whatever you want, but P1, P2, P3, P4, so you remember. Another thing you can do is copy presets. So you got a good baseline tune on preset 1. You want to start with that on preset 2, but you don't have to go back and adjust it again. You can simply click copy presets, go from preset 1 over to preset 2, and copy and send, and now it'll go through the same process, and now your preset 2 is exactly the same as preset 1. So you have a baseline to start a new tune and do everything again. So overall it's pretty basic. I would say, the graphical interface isn't the most fancy, and some stuff may be a little confusing, but in the end it's pretty intuitive. I had no problem with it the very first time I used it. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other features in here that I haven't discovered myself, even after doing about 50 or 60 of these. But overall, that's what you'll need to do. So in those order, I like to do the mixer, followed by the crossover first. And typically, if you want to find out if it's your first time doing an active system on a two-way, it's best to ask the manufacturer or dealer what a suggested crossover frequency is, and you can use that. Then I do the time alignment, followed by playing with the level. And in the end, when you do tuning by ear, there's really no magic formula of tuning. I think everybody has their different ways to do it. But once you have a full grasp of all these functions, what they do, you'll have a pretty good idea on where to start. So, and my last suggestion is that with any Bluetooth or wireless DSPs, what I suggest and what I like to do is once in a while save it to a file, because sometimes it loses connectivity, sometimes you don't know what happens. So the worst thing that can happen is somehow it crashes. I never had it happen with this DSP or other ones for that matter, but it's nice to save to a file so you can always come back and won't lose any of your tuning effort thus far.
Now I'm going to address the one physical setting part of the Moscone DSP, and that's the input gain. As some of you may know, the Moscone DSPs has an auto mute feature, which if it detects a lot of clipping and distortion, it will basically mute all the outputs. And what that sounds like is pretty kind of weird. If you've heard it for the first time, it'll be music, it'll be playing, all of a sudden it'll stop, it'll try to come back on again, it'll stop again. And basically that usually means the input gain knob has been turned on too high on the DSP. So basically what I like to start with, if you see here on this card, we just have channels 1 and 2 inputted. So this is the only gain that we're concerned with. I like to start with low input gains all the way on the bottom. And what I like to do, I've done this a few ways. I've used pink noise before to set it until it mutes. But sometimes I realize after I set it to pink noise, somebody goes in there and puts in a CD that's recorded at a really high level, got a really dynamic part at those, let's say a drum beat, it'll still auto mute at that point. I'm sure there's a much more scientific way to do this, maybe with a lot of gear, but if you're just doing it on your own, this is what I like to do. I know over the course of the last few years, I found a song that I know really will engage the auto mute if you have the gain set too high, and I use this song exclusively for doing it. And oddly enough, it's Madonna's Holiday. So basically what I like to do is play this on the head unit at the relatively maxed on-clip level. Different units, different. For example, in this car I have it right now set on, it's a stock head unit running through a pack audio interface, and I have it set on pretty high, like 35 out of possible 40 on the volume. So what I do is I play that with the gain at the bottom, and I like to turn up slowly until it auto mutes. You hear it cut out. And at that point I start back up a little bit until the music, that song, will still be playing continuously. Then I turn it back just a little bit more, maybe like an eighth or so, and then that's usually where I leave it at. So, and also I got this really magic thing with my fingers where if I snap my fingers I can make any car system turn on and off. So right now I'm going to go through that process. The music's going to be pretty loud, so you may not hear me talking, but I'll basically do that and go over the process I just spoke of. So I'm going to snap my fingers and this song's going to magically come on. Okay, ready? So now it's playing, and I turn this up slowly. At some point, hear that? It is now auto muting. It's coming back and on. Okay, so I'm going to start coming back. That's it, it's playing. Come back a little bit more. Done. And that's usually where I leave it. I know it doesn't seem like a very scientific way of doing it, but over the past dozens of installs, it's worked out pretty good. You get a very good signal out of it, and I've never found somebody to be able to make it go into auto mute with another song. So that's what I do. Very simple and very basic. You may find a better method on your own, but this is what I do. Okay, thank you.